to another episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. Today we are here with the lovely Dr. Heather Robinson for her latest book, Educators Rise Voices of Change, which is Anthology. Dr. Robinson, how are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is when I looked at, the description, I was like, oh my God, this is very relevant and on time. So go ahead, let's start off with just the title. How did you come up with the title? And then also the cover, the book cover.
So if I take it back 3 years ago, God actually gave me this. He gives me stuff and I hold on to it. I'm not really sure why, but I held on to it until August of last year. I had a girlfriend that had an event for her anthology. And I was a host and I also was the keynote speaker. And she said, okay, so when are you going to stop hiding and step out? Because you have all this expertise and it's time for you to step into the next level. And I was like, well, God has been telling me to get back into doing stuff with education because I had stopped doing things with education for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst to me, I still was doing stuff, right? Because that's who you are. Once you're an educator, you're still doing stuff in education, even when you think you're not. So I said, okay, I went into a group and I just was like, let me just see if people would be interested, if I can get some bites. I'm doing an anthology and it's around educators and DEI. At that point, I didn't even have what the cover was going to be or anything.
Okay.
And people started biting. So I started brainstorming with my girlfriend and I said, one of my slogans is bridging the gaps that so easily separates us. And so she was like, that's good. And I was like, what about something with educators and voices, right? So we just kept going back and forth with it. And then Educators Rise Voices of Change came up. So then I told her, I was like, okay, as a teacher in the classroom, these are some of the colors that I see, right? As an educator and as a teacher, these are the colors that you see. So she was like, let me get in touch with the graphic designer that I use. Next thing I knew, they were taking some of my ideas and I was like, I want DEI, I want to have a bridge and I want a gap between the bridge. And she actually came up with somebody being on one side of the bridge and then there being a gap. How do I get to the other side? And DEI is the little stepping stone that you use to get to the other side. So my girlfriend actually helped me a lot with coming up with this particular cover.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like everybody has different talents, right? So I can build a house, but I need you to come in and make it aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And so I built the house and she made it aesthetically pleasing.
And it's a beautiful cover. Yeah, it's a beautiful cover. It's very figurative. I love it. It has meaning behind it. Do you think that people judge books by its cover?
Absolutely. Yeah. People judge a book by its cover. And that terminology goes more than just a physical book because people will judge you by your cover.
Absolutely.
So they judge you based off of how you present yourself. It's not always what we think, but presentation and representation is everything. And if you don't present something right, you miss opportunities.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely agree. Well, this is a beautiful cover. It's very relevant. And for the people who don't know, and I always tell my students, use a dictionary. But for the people who don't know what an anthology is.
A dictionary.
No, I'm a reading teacher. So I'm like, guys, use your dictionary. An anthology. Can you tell people what they can expect? Because this is an anthology. So this is more so like a collection of different, right? Okay.
So first of all, this is the first anthology where I'm the visionary. So this is my baby. And I thank all of my co-authors for actually entrusting me with that because it takes a lot to trust somebody with your piece of work.
Yeah.
With this being a collection of works, I kind of wanted to do something different. So I gave my authors the opportunity to write 2 chapters instead of 1. A lot of anthologies, they will do interview style and they interview you and then they do the they put your chapter together like that. I didn't want to do it that way. So this is an actual book that is actually penned author by author. So
Oh,
chapters are actually written out. They're not broken down into question and answer.
okay. I love that. So it's more so of a like from their perspective,
Right.
and they're kind of leading the chapter.
100% collaboration.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
I like those types of books. I do. Introduction and background. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Now I know you said God gave you this inspiration to put this on your heart to go ahead and put out, but tell us a little bit about your background as a writer. Like, is this your first book or do you have other ones? Or
So I actually started writing the night I became parentless when I was 15. So I penned my first poem and it was entitled Why Me? And then writing became a place of solace for me. And so whenever I was struggling, that was kind of how people like to travel. Well, when you're a kid, you can't. So I traveled through writing. And then that kind of spilled over into traveling through reading. And as I got older, going to school and going into education, which I fell into, and different things of that nature, I never lost it. But it wasn't until 2010 God gave me Anointed to Write. Now I'm from Philly. And so back then I was like, don't nobody put no number in their business. That's whack. That's corny. I don't want to be a part of the whack juice. So I left it where it was. But if you count 11 years later in 2021, I was talking to a girlfriend and I was like, let's check to see if Anointed to Write is still available. Lo and behold, it was still available after 11 years. So that tells me two things. It was a God thing and it wasn't a me thing. And it was destined to be birthed. I wrote my first book in 2016 and I published through a traditional publisher. And he was a reverend. I was one of his first authors. He died. So when he died, the way the contract was set up, is why I tell people read your contracts. You're in a 3-year contract, and after 3 years, you can cancel your contract or it'll automatically roll over. That's how his contract was set up, which I thought was dope. So when he passed away, all the rights, you got everything back and you had to kind of start from scratch. So I'm like, all right, I got this in my hand. What am I going to do? And the Lord said, it's time for you to do what I told you to do. So I self-published a second edition along with 2 other books. So in 2022, I self-published 3 books at one time, which was interesting. So since then, I've been a part of 2 different book anthologies. My book anthology will mark number 6. There's 2 more that are in the pipeline that I'm a part of, and I'm actually doing a volume 2 starting next month for this book. And the conference for volume 1 is in June.
Nice. I love that. So you guys have turned this into now a conference.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. This is a lot to unpack. And when I saw, like I said, I saw the description, I was like, oh my God, because you're in Philly, you said, right?
I actually am from Philly, but I'm not in Philly. The conference is going to be in Exton, Pennsylvania, which is maybe like 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia, 15 outside of Westchester.
Okay. I'm in Texas, and in Texas, they recently passed a House bill for school vouchers. So there's the book topic that you have with DEI and teachers bridging the gap is really timely because that's all they're talking about in the news right now. There's so many changes under the new presidential administration with DEI. So tell us a little bit about this book specifically.
Well, when we first came together, it was for everybody to share their experience or lack thereof. Because there's some people that teach and they see DEI every day within their curriculum, but then there's some people that don't. And every author is from a different state. I'm the only Pennsylvania author in this book. So I thought that was pretty dope because every state is going through something different. So everybody is taking their expertise and their experiences and what they see, and they're telling you this is what we're doing and this is what we need to be doing. Or this is what we were doing, and these are the ramifications if we keep going in the direction that we're going in. And it's very interesting because I read all of the chapters and everybody's perspective, and they're coming from an authentic place. And you can tell everybody has an individual experience, and it's not something that was discussed beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So it's really
that's something that's great.
Yeah. And that's interesting. And I think first of all, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? That's what DEI is. I think, who's your target audience for this book? Like, who do you think, when you wrote it, did you have in mind, like, I want this group of people to read this? Of course, you want everybody, but when you're writing it, is it for teachers or is it for parents?
So my plight was, when I was growing up, the term "it takes a village to raise a child" was taken seriously. What does that mean? That means administration, teachers, and parents were all on the same team. They work together to meet the individual need of the individual children. So that was my tribe, my administrators, my teachers, and my father, because I lost my mom at 7. So that was my tribe. So they fought for me. So if there was an IEP, if there was behavior issue, whatever that was, they came together, they were on one accord, and they fought for me. And that's how I didn't fall between the tracks, because I had 5 IEPs coming up. So for me, in order for us to get back into that, we need the parents, we need administrators, and we need teachers to all get educated, become informed, and get back on the same page so that we can get back to doing what we're supposed to do, because it's supposed to be about meeting the needs of the students. And right now, because we're not on one accord, that's not really possible. So for me, this is more about that village.
Okay, yeah, and that is important. I am a teacher. I teach 8th grade reading, and the school that I'm at. So the school that I'm at is the kids interview to get in. So automatically we have the parents who are there to support their kids, versus a school where it's just enrolled by what is it called, like where you're zoned to. I work summer school, so I see the difference in the parents, from the parents that are at the schools where it's just enrolled by zoning, and then the parents who have to actually go through a process to interview. And I think, like you said, the village, the parent portion is extremely important. Back in the day, like you said, a lot of parents were involved. What I'm seeing, I try to call home and I get the little, this number is out of, I can't get in touch with them. And then they don't have an email. So I think this book would be great for parents as well, to see what it's like on the inside. Kids are at school more than they're at home.
Yep.
They're at school 8 hours a day. So I'm that parent that I'm going to get your parent on the phone, because the students need to see that we're in communication. Like, I'm going to call home. Parents need to know what's going on. And then the teachers, I know in Texas, we have programs where you don't even have to be certified to teach. So they're coming in without any knowledge. Really, you're learning on the go. So a book like this would be great for them, because they need that training to see, well, how can I help? Because as a teacher, we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just teaching. The social and emotional learning aspects is very important if we're trying to build up well-rounded students and future, citizens to make up the society that we live in. So I think that, a child left behind, eventually they're going to be out of the school system, and then they're going to be in the community. So I feel like everyone, like you said, the village is very important. So this is great for people to get an inside look and to hear the personal accounts from people that are, doing the work. What do you think was the most challenging part of writing this book? If there was. Maybe there
For
wasn't.
me, because when we started, we were not where we are today. So coming to the place where we kind of started going into the editing process is when we really got into, you have different stores that are kind of dropping DEI and things of that
Mhm.
nature. And one of the things I think that's really challenging, that is still challenging for me and is that number one, people think this is a new thing under this administration, and it's not. Secondly, the only difference between this administration and past administrations is that this administration is maybe more overt with how they're moving. And I think that that's something that we have to be mindful of as well. Just because it's covert doesn't mean it's not happening. So this has been in the works for a while, and this has been happening for a while. And sometimes it's like you have to be mindful as an educator how you move and how you say things, right? Because you don't know if a parent of one of your students is going to pick up your book. You don't know if a student that you had years ago that's an adult now is going to pick it up, because I've been teaching for 22 years. So
Oh.
there are some, I'm only 18, but
I
there
was
are
about to
some,
say you look great. Oh my
there
God.
there are some students who are adults that are reading, and they might be like, hey, that was my so and so teacher, let me see what she's writing about. And
Mhm.
I wanted it to be a help and not a hindrance across the board. Because
Yeah.
number one, DEI is not just a Black issue. And that's a misconception. DEI
Mhm.
is not about getting people that are not qualified for the job. Because I can give you an example. I have 22 years and I have a PhD that is not honorary that I worked for. And so when I go for a job and someone else goes for that same job and they have the same credentials and the same experience, but they are a white male and they get the job over me, or they get a higher pay, that's where DEI comes in. We're not looking at getting a free handout.
Yeah.
We're looking at getting our just due. And it's
Yeah.
not just for the Black woman, it's not just for the Black man. And when you look at it, who they're calling the minority is actually the majority. So when you do judgings and rulings and hearings, it's always majority rules, right? Well, in this, majority would rule because this actually impacts everyone. Because even if I'm a white male, that's my mama, that's my sister, that's my wife.
Yeah.
So what impacts them impacts me. So
Yeah.
DEI is for everyone.
Yeah. It's a systemic issue for sure.
Mhm.
Especially in America. It's a
Right.
systemic issue. And I think people really, especially, oh my God, with social media, anybody can post anything. You guys have to fact check. You guys have to see, look up, do your research. What is DEI? I don't understand why people automatically equate. They hear DEI and they automatically think Black. Oh, they want to hand out. What is it called?
Affirmative action.
Yeah. So from like, no, guys, this is not only that. You know. So I think really doing your research, you especially in the education setting, because I don't
Mhm.
think people really understand um the changes, especially in Texas. I've already seen the changes. I've
Right.
already seen jobs being cut. I've already seen positions being eliminated that were tailored for specific groups of people, not just Black people, like other things as well. So I think that people can get more of a sense of clarity from reading your book to see that this is not a race issue. Of course that is in there, but that's not the end all be all of DEI.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go here to the next one for the writing and publishing journey. So yeah, what was the process like, since this is an anthology? Did you kind of set like a deadline for you guys, or like what was that like to get everybody on
So
board?
we had a deadline and we had a word count.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So the word count was 2,500, and we had a deadline because you have to go through editing and formatting, and then you get proofs, and then you have to approve it. And if something needs to be changed, it has to be sent back. And if you want to have a launch date that you can stick to, then
Mhm.
everything needs to stick to a deadline.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would say for anyone that actually wants to venture out and be a visionary of an anthology, think about deadlines. That's the most important.
Yeah, definitely with what's the word? Collaborating. Right?
Hmm.
It can be, I can only imagine what that's like. I'm thinking about like, planning a group trip with the girls, like, okay, when's your day? So with writing, especially like for me as a writer, I've published maybe like 10 books, but I have to be moved. I just said another, like I can, but I need to be a little more disciplined in sitting down and writing to a deadline. But I am the type of person like I have to be moved in order to really be, to give what I'm trying to give. But I need to get better at that. So I can only imagine if you're working with other people, how many other authors are included?
So there's 8 of us total.
Okay, wow,
There was
yes.
9, but then
Mhm.
there was time constraints, so she kinda stepped away and is gonna be a part of volume 2, and you have to be okay with that too. You have to know
Yeah.
what you can do and what you can't do, and if it's too much for you, and be able to step away so that it doesn't put you in a strain, because it's a process, but you also
Mhm.
have to meet deadlines, because when you're writing a book by yourself, you can push back as much as you want because it's just you. But
Mhm.
when you're writing with other people and they are pretty much counting on you,
Yeah.
you have to really rise to the occasion.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. You don't want to let the team down
Mhm.
doing that. Um, okay. What do you think the biggest lesson was that you learned throughout this whole process of you being the visionary?
Um, I'm an educator for life, that's first. So that's what I learned, I can't let that go.
Yeah.
But what being the visionary actually taught me was, number 1, don't second guess yourself. When God gives you something, it's because he's equipped you to carry it.
Mm,
And that's something that I've had to really, like, deal with, like, God will give me something and I'll be like, it's always an excuse, but if I
mhm.
gave it to you, I've equipped you for it. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to rest in that,
Mhm.
and that was something for me where it was like, wow, it's a wow factor. This thing is coming out in 6 days, and I was the visionary, and not only did my people actually meet their deadlines,
Mhm, mhm.
they actually paid in full, nobody played in my face.
Yeah.
But
That's mhm.
we were able to create something that was great, and then there's bonds that are created within that group as well. So that was
Absolutely.
important for me too, to see you can work with perfect strangers and then leave and have lasting relationships. Because I only knew one of my co-authors before we did this book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. First of all, congratulations. That is a
Thank you.
huge accomplishment to be the visionary, put all this together. And it's a beautiful thing when people can come together and actually follow through. I say it all the time that usually, most of the time, strangers are going to be your biggest supporters,
Yes.
because I feel like you guys are coming together with a shared goal. You guys have a
Mhm.
shared, interest. So I think that's very important. Sometimes when there's people we know, like you say, oh, play in your face, like they don't take it as, oh, she'll be okay. We can, but no, that's amazing. Also, I do want to take time to note that this is going to be a piece of history that you guys are documenting. So I love that, because as a person, I do a lot of research literally just for fun on different topics. And I love it when I find something where it's like, way back in the day, and it's a person, yes, who looks like me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that they took the time to sit down and write this so that I can get
Mhm.
it from their mouths.
Yes.
It's always important to tell your story from your mouth, control the narrative, because if we don't do
Yes.
that, they will erase. They will erase. So
Mhm.
big that you guys, I'm glad you guys took the time to actually sit down and document your experiences. That's amazing for the future generations to see. Advice for aspiring authors. What would you tell them if they want to? Let's talk about teachers specifically. So if you feel like there's a teacher out there, if there's a teacher out there who wants to write some type of book about maybe education, maybe if it's nonfiction or just any book, what advice would you give them with your background knowledge? Because as a teacher, we have a lot on our plate. But if they want to write, you're an example. Okay, you're a doctor and you're an author, and a visionary. So what advice would you give to people who, if they're a teacher and they want to publish a book, what would you tell them?
Take 30 minutes a day for 30 days to brainstorm. I don't care if it's when you're in the tub, if you're on the toilet, if you are driving in your car and you got to press record on your phone and record your thoughts. They don't have to be perfect. When you write it down, it look like chicken stretching all over the place. It's almost like doing a brain dump. You got to get all your ideas out, because if you don't, you're going to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You do that for 30 days, I promise you'll be able to put something together out of all that you have dumped.
Yes, I love that.
30 minutes is all it takes. It doesn't take your whole day. You have other things going on. You have kids, you have a spouse, you have your job, you have to maintain your home. You might work out, and mental health and physical health and all of that.
Yes.
But if you could just take 30 minutes a day,
I agree. I agree. I think, we all have the same amount of hours in a day. It's just about carving out that time for what you want to get it done. If you don't control your day is going to control you. So I definitely agree with that. I agree with that. And well, something else you said, but I forgot. I can't think about it. But I agree with that, guys. 30 minutes. Oh, that's what it is. You said record. I tell people all the time to use the voice recording tool. Even with writing books on Google Docs, I know for sure you can use the voice typing tool where you go down and you can talk and it'll literally type out the words for you. I'm in grad school. That has saved me so much time with writing my paper because I don't have the time. But yeah, you can do it. I think if people put their mind to it and carve out the time, like you said, 30 minutes, 30 days, that's great. And they would be able to do it. I think it is time for trivia. Okay, so we have a trivia time. Is going to ask you one question. So this is a game of Would You Rather Author Edition. Okay, so you're going to pick a number from 1 to 4.
Let's go with 2.
2. Okay, let's see what question number 2 is. Okay, so would you rather teach a class full of talkative kindergartners or silent high school seniors?
Talkative kindergartners.
Talkative. Okay, why did you choose the talkative kindergartners?
Because they're hilarious. And I've done it, and it's hilarious. And what they talk about.
Yeah. Yes, the day goes by fast. I mean, it's never a dull moment with these kids. Oh my God. I agree. And it's funny that this question popped up because when I first started teaching, this was my 5th year. And I was like, I either want to teach kindergarten or high school. Like it was like, that's the 2 that I want. And I was like, oh, but I don't, kindergarten, you need a lot of energy. I mean, you need a lot of energy. So this is our closing slide. So what is next for you? What do you have next in store for us?
Well, as I said, the book comes out on April 25th, which is next Friday. You can order that on my website at Anointed2Write.com. Okay. And we have our conference that will be on June 28th. That information is also on the website. If you are looking to attend the conference as a teacher, I am CPD certified, so you will get 6 hours of continuing education credits just for attending. So that's something big for educators. Wow. We're also doing Slay the Runway, where we're asking people that are actually coming out to see the conference or be a part of the conference, if you will, come dressed to impress, but dress in something that represents your personality, and you'll get to walk the runway. You slay the runway, and then there'll be prizes for that.
Oh, that's cute. That's fun. Okay.
And the last thing is I am looking for co-authors for my volume 2 of the Educator Writes Voices of Change Anthology. That information will be going out. Wow. Probably the Monday after the 25th. That's the 28th.
Okay. Wow. I love it. You have a lot. I love that. Staying busy. Where is the conference again? Is it only in person or is it virtual as well? Or what's that like?
So this conference is only in person, and it
Okay.
will be in Exton, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
There will be clips from it after the fact, but for my first conference that I'm spearheading, I wanted it to be in person. Plus, during COVID, there was years of virtual, and I know
Yes.
that that's great, but there's something about that in-person experience that I miss.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. That is so true. Well, guys, definitely, it doesn't matter what your title is. You guys definitely should check out Dr. Heather Robinson's book, Educators Rise Voices of Change. Okay. Shout out to all of the teachers, people in the education setting, the parents, the students, guys. Check out her book. We'll have all of the links in the description box. Dr. Robinson, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome back anytime. And we definitely do, for those of us who can't attend, we want to watch some of the clips from that seminar workshop that you guys have coming up.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Author Interviews with Jasmine Prose, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.